I don't want to get into the nitpicking about the campaign because I think it's easy for people to play Monday morning quarterback. A lot of the people now calling Bernie, a coward and a sellout and this nonsense. They didn't seem to be saying that when he was on 60 Minutes as the front runner and about everybody thought, about to win. So definitely there were mistakes, but people thought the campaign was doing well. The main thing that I noticed, and you've spoken about, is it seemed like Bernie Sanders fundamentally, you used the phrase contrast, but it really seems to me that Bernie Sanders had in his mind that the main way to be victorious is to win on your ideas and proposals rather than prove that the other guy or gal is, not telling you the truth or flawed. It seemed like he had this kind of, in my view, a slightly naive, but hopeful thing where we're going to win on the ideas, but not discredit the other person. I mean, case in point, you don't have to get into internal campaign stuff, but I don't know many other campaigns that would have sat on and not run ads in South Carolina about Biden, frankly, making up major parts of his civil rights record. There were reports that you, Nita Turner, others were urging the senator to take the gloves off a little more. Can progressives really win that way, just proposing the ideas and organizing, or do you really have to, at a certain point, I think contrast is a nice word for it, but treat Democrats during the primaries similar to how we go after Republicans?
Well, I would say this, the history of Democratic Party primaries is a history of candidates really contrasting with each other in very, at times, harsh ways. And I'm one of the people who doesn't think that's a bad thing. I think primaries are where you are supposed to have that vigorous exchange, where you're supposed to be clear on what the differences really are. There's a way to do that in very intense terms without them being personal. I think that, and we've seen the success of that in this sense. Barack Obama, Hillary Clinton had a knockdown, drag out primary, and I think that ended up strengthening Barack Obama for the general election. I think that was a good thing. I mean, Democratic primaries, I reject the idea that coronations are good for the Democratic Party. I think that vigorous primaries strengthen general election nominees. I don't buy the idea that vigorous primaries weaken general election nominees. They battle test potential nominees. They allow the party to really vet the candidates. I think we've just gone through a primary where there was much less vetting, much less battle testing than there really has ever been in modern American politics in the Democratic Party. And now the Democratic Party has a relatively unvetted, unchallenged nominee. And I think that you're seeing now the potential downsides of that. Joe Biden, I think most people would probably agree, hasn't run, at least not yet, the most vigorous general election candidacy. Now, granted, there's a lot of things going. There's the coronavirus situation that makes it harder to campaign. But I think there are legitimate questions about, is he the best nominee that the Democrats could have put forward? And I think that the primary, there were certain times where there was a contrast, but there were other times where the contrast wasn't as sharp. And I think that has left the Democrats with an somewhat unchallenged, somewhat unvetted nominee. I would also say to your question about whether progressives can win without doing real contrast, it is my view that if you are running an anti-establishment campaign, you must make the campaign a referendum on the establishment. You must make the campaign a referendum on the establishment candidate. You can do that without being personal, without being, salacious, without being super negative. It is not negative to say somebody voted for the Iraq War, I didn't vote for the Iraq War, and I disagree, and this is a big difference that means something to voters. That is not negative. That is called democracy. Voters deserve to know what the stakes are, what the choices are, what the records are when they go to the polls and cast their votes. So I think that progressives delude themselves into thinking that they can nice their way to power. That if you are going to be trying to take power from the establishment is not just going to give over that power. You are going to have to actually take that power. And part of taking that power means being very explicit and being willing to contrast with opponents about the power of that establishment that you are taking power from.
And I also think there's a misconception because, obviously Trump was full of it, but in 2016, he named names, right? He called them puppets. He named the donors. There's this thought that the Democratic Party base would think that's too rough and wouldn't appeal to that. But I don't really think so because there was some crossover between. I was on the campaign trail. A lot of Trump voters said, if not Trump, they like Bernie. So I think Democratic voters, I mean, not in a such obnoxious way like Trump did it, but I didn't hear Bernie, for example, talk that much about, well, Joe, why'd you tell your Wall Street donors that nothing's going to change? And you're having fundraiser after fundraiser with a who's who of, Wall Street and big finance and things like that. I understand there's old rules of the Senate and Biden was nice to him and his wife, but at a certain point, you're either running against him or he's your friend.
Yeah, and look, I don't want to second guess Bernie's specific tactics and his decisions. I mean, he has a way that he campaigns, and that's been his way, and frankly, it's been successful for many, many years. I mean, yes, it's true. I was pushing the campaign to do more contrast. I'm not, that's not a secret. Every campaign has, people disagreeing and pushing forward ideas, and other ideas rise to the surface and they don't. That is I've been worked on 8 campaigns. That happens on every single campaign. I would say the lesson going forward, though, is that the model of trying to make nice with the establishment at one level, sort of rhetorically, not on policy, because I don't think anybody can say that Bernie Sanders sold out on policy or sold out his values at all. I just wholly reject that. But there's a tactical question. The tactical question of, can you sort of rhetorically be nice to the establishment and also hope to seize power from that establishment from the outside? Can you have one foot on the outside and one toe on the inside? And I think that this election, one of the strategic takeaways is you probably can't. You probably can't do that. That if you're going to win a primary, you're going to have to actually take power. Now, I want to go back to the 2008 campaign because I think that's instructive. Barack Obama, I do not think did not represent an anti-establishment agenda. In a real sense. I mean, rhetorically, and to be clear, in 2008, he campaigned on a much more progressive agenda than he actually governed with. That's a whole separate discussion. But I don't think he was ever perceived to be an existential threat to the power of the establishment that runs both parties. Frankly, I don't think he would dispute that. I mean, I had an interview with him in 2006 where he said he's not a revolutionary. He's essentially a reformer. So, but the point is that he was still a threat to at least one part of the establishment, the Clinton wing of the Democratic Party, which had a lot of power. And he had to run a highly and intensely contrastive campaign in order to have a chance to win. And he wasn't even representing the kind of existential threat to the establishment that Bernie Sanders was. And I think the takeaway from that and the takeaway from the 2020 campaign that we just discussed adds to the argument that if you're going to run as a genuinely anti-establishment candidate, you must be contrasting every single minute of every single day, and you must be taking every opportunity to make clear in the minds of voters what the primary choice really is all about. And that if you don't do that, you may ruffle fewer feathers, but you may be making it harder for yourself to actually seize power from an establishment that doesn't want to give you that power.
Right. 2 quick questions before we go. One, there was criticism among progressives that when Obama was elected as president, he left his organizing army, at the altar. He didn't tap into that massive list he had, and Citigroup basically, picked his cabinet, and we know the rest. Bernie's been doing live streams during coronavirus. I think he's doing another one with Congresswoman Jayapal and some others. So that's definitely been helpful as far as keeping people connected. But do you think that he should be kind of enlisting that army? There is, I think, a growing appetite for things like rent strikes, moratoriums on mortgages, things like that. Or do you think he's using his time best kind of negotiating with Biden's campaign? Seems like he's still invested in making that platform at the convention as progressive as possible. Can he do both? Just seems like he's not really doing the former with utilizing his list for actions.
Yeah, I mean, I think that in general, Bernie has said that one of the things that he thought Obama, and he laid the blame, if I'm remembering correctly, he laid part of the blame at Obama's feet. But he basically said, Obama, when he got elected in 2008, Bernie took issue with Obama sort of shutting down the grassroots movement behind the Obama candidacy and not using it as a pressure system on Congress when Obama was president. And I think what Bernie does right now with his list and what actions he should be taking and where his focus should be, to me, the bigger question is, how do we prepare for, hopefully, the defeat of Donald Trump and then the next president having a pressure system on them so that we do not replicate what happened after 2008. After 2008, Obama came in, and I think a large segment of the Democratic voting population said, hey, we fixed our problems, we succeeded, and great, we can all chill out now. If Joe Biden or whoever the nominee ends up being wins the presidency, on day one of their presidency, there need to be demands, there needs to be pressure, there does not need to be deference. That's the key. The establishment will want deference. And I think all of the forward-looking activism right now, beyond this short-term emergency that we're facing, which is very real, but the longer-term activism, part of it needs to have a focus on the effort to make sure that that pressure system exists in a real way, that that accountability system exists in a real way the moment the next Democratic president assumes office.
Hope you enjoyed that last video. Hop on over to statuscoup.com where you can sign up for our email list and become a member for as low as $5 to $10 a month. Membership is how we grow. That's statuscoup.com/join. And remember, join our email list so we can grow the revolution with you.